Coming up on this Jerusalem Dateline, Israel promises to keep pounding Hezbollah, and Yahya Sinwar reportedly dressing as a woman to evade capture. Plus, Sheba Medical Center offering hope without boundaries, preparing itself for any large-scale emergency. And follow the money, how the U.S. may be inadvertently supporting Hezbollah with taxpayer dollars. All this and more coming up on this edition of Jerusalem Dateline. Hello and welcome to this edition of Jerusalem Dateline. I'm Julie Stahl. Today I'm joined by our war correspondent, Chuck Holton. Welcome, Chuck.
Hi. It's
good to have you here. Always good to have you in the Bureau.
It's good to be indoors for once.
Yeah, and Chris is in the States. Chris Mitchell's in the States, and you came to do stories. Any highlights? Where have you been on this trip?
Oh, I've tried to cover all the bases since I've been here. I went down to the south to Sderot, right on the border with Gaza, and covered the return of some of the people who stay in that hotel right across the street from us. And then I went up to the north, and of course there's a lot going on up there. We had to dive for cover a couple of times from the incoming drones and rockets from Hezbollah. And we got to interview some very interesting folks who have stayed up there to take care of their animals, their farm, things like that, and live right on the border. So you can imagine just what they have to face up there. And then I got to go to Jordan and actually see how this war is affecting the Palestinians, who are the majority of the people that live over there. Wow. And it's a pretty ironic story that will be airing in a day or two.
Okay, sounds very interesting. We look forward to seeing that and to seeing your Lebanese story on the Lebanese border later in the show. A preemptive strike this past weekend saved thousands of lives in Israel. Israeli warplanes took out thousands of Hezbollah missiles ready to launch at the Jewish state. The terror group fired more than 300 rockets and drones, which did little damage. Now Israel's prime minister is sending a warning to Iran and Hezbollah. There's more to come. Here are the updates. Israel sent more than 100 jets to attack dozens of sites in Lebanon Sunday morning, destroying more than 1,000 rockets Hezbollah planned to launch at Israel.
As soon as we identified Hezbollah's intention to carry out the attack, we thwarted the majority of the attack. Hezbollah attempted to severely harm the north and center of Israel, but was met with an iron fist.
Thousands of missiles and drones were primed to be launched against civilians in Israel. Had these missiles and drones flown, the death toll would have been in the thousands with massive damage.
Hezbollah's leader insists Israel started the trouble and his terror group reacted in defense.
It was an aggression, not a preemptive act. If we assume that it was a preemptive act, then it had no impact at all on our military operations.
Hezbollah managed to launch 320 rockets and attack drones. The terror group reportedly targeted Israeli intelligence targets in central Israel. The only Israeli casualty was a sailor killed by shrapnel falling from the sky. Israeli Ambassador Michael Herzog believes the preemptive strike may have prevented a wider war. But he says the threat on the northern border remains, making it impossible for thousands of Israelis to live in their own homes along that border.
We have nearly 70,000 people in Israel, northern Israel, away from their homes, refugees in their own country, and we have to make sure they can go back safely to their homes.
Herzog also noted that the strong U.S. military presence is helping deter Iran. 2 carrier groups are now in the region. The White House is still pursuing a ceasefire deal to end the war in Gaza and bring the region back from the brink of war. However, Hamas has still not accepted a deal.
It is incumbent on all parties in the region to work towards de-escalation and stability. And so we are feverishly working in Cairo as we speak with our team and the teams of the other mediators, as well as with the Israelis, to get to a ceasefire and hostage deal.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says the fight with Hezbollah and Iran is far from over. Monday afternoon, Israel carried out strikes on a Lebanese border town near the city of Sidon.
Nasrallah in Beirut and Khamenei in Tehran should know that this is another step on the path to changing the situation in the north and returning our residents safely to their homes. And I repeat, this is not the end of the story.
Hezbollah's entrenched position in southern Lebanon presents an ongoing strategic challenge along Israel's northern border. The IDF reports daily rocket and drone incursions and continues striking Hezbollah positions overnight.
We're very determined to continue degrading Hezbollah, eliminating more commanders, and denying them assets and capabilities. We're not stopping.
Iran continues to threaten retaliatory action following the July 30th neutralization of Hamas top political leader in Tehran.
Retaliation for this crime, whether by the axis of resistance or by Iran, is certain.
As the region seems to have stepped back from the brink of a wider war, the Biden administration is continuing to push a Gaza ceasefire despite Hamas' rejection of the current plan.
The working groups are now meeting and talking, and so there continues to be progress, and our team on the ground continues to describe the talks as constructive.
Israel believes neutralizing top Hamas leader Yahya Sinwar could accelerate ceasefire negotiations. IDF troops reportedly have come within minutes of finding him, but Sinwar's evasion tactics reportedly include communication blackouts and wearing a burqa, leading some Israelis to give him the moniker Mrs. Dodgefire. As the conflict enters its 11th month, Iran has issued a warning to all airlines to exercise caution when flying over specific areas of its airspace starting September 1st, without specifying an end date, increasing concerns about another retaliatory attack sometime soon. Chuck Holton, CBN News, Jerusalem.
We have some joyous breaking news. The rescue of a hostage. Qaid Farhan al-Qadi has been held by Hamas since October 7th. The 52-year-old father of 11 children was taken from Kibbutz Magen, where he worked. Israeli forces rescued him from a tunnel in Khan Yunis. He's reported to be in stable medical condition and was taken to an Israeli hospital where he met his family. It's the fourth successful rescue of a live Israeli hostage from Hamas.
Almost a year into Israel's war against Hamas, the conflict grows more intense, with Hezbollah in the north. As missile attacks increase, hospitals are crucial and could become targets. CBN Middle East correspondent Julie Stahl goes underground for a look at a unique solution to keep them safe and operational.
Sheba Medical Center has been a key part of the war effort since the Hamas invasion.
And we've treated well over 1,600 soldiers and civilians, mostly soldiers. And I can say that the challenge is there on a day-to-day basis still, because there's still, unfortunately, a war going on in Gaza.
Global Media Director Steve Waltz says, in addition to the casualties of war, hospital personnel have been unusually busy this summer treating sick Israelis.
So the hospital's been challenged, the staff has been challenged. People try and escape for a few days. The staff tries to escape for a few days just to reboot and come back to ourselves, because not only is the war not over, we don't know what's going to be going forward.
Here at the Sheba Medical Center, 6 floors underground, they have a complete hospital ready just in case there's a massive missile attack.
This was an area that was originally built and created during the Corona era, because we really didn't know how many sick patients we would get, but we kept it because we know that we live in an area where missiles are falling all the time. So we knew that one day this would come into use.
This is especially important given the threats from multiple fronts, including Iran, against heavily populated areas like Tel Aviv.
Each area here is designated for a different section of the hospital, and we would be able to move them down here quickly, and they can stay down here for as long as needed, and the doctors would be here to tend to patients. The electricity is such that we can hook up dialysis patients, and we have hundreds of beds ready and capable of being used for patients if in an emergency.
Above ground, the hospital covers 200 acres with 2,000 beds. Various underground sections can house hundreds of potential patients, and if that's not enough,
we have something catastrophic. This hospital has 2 alternatives. It can move more people under the maternity hospital, and in an extreme emergency, and we drill this once a year or once every other year, we can actually build a field hospital outside. In other words, if God forbid one of the buildings here was damaged and they could not return to the main hospital or one of the other hospitals, we have 5 hospitals on campus, we can actually have the capability of building a field hospital in one of the major parking lots and operate that.
In addition to the operation here, Rambam Medical Center in Haifa and others in Israel also have underground facilities. Given this literal groundbreaking idea, other countries have come to Israel for help.
Israel is unique because we get missiles all the time. Actually, Sheba Medical Center has been asked by other hospitals around the world, especially those that are, let's say, in Germany, that are unfortunately close to the area where the Ukraine war is going on with Russia.
One area housing a large number of Russian ballistic missiles is just 10 minutes flying time from downtown Berlin.
None of them are prepared for an emergency, how to move patients, how to build areas that are more secure. So they've come here and we've gone to them to offer advice as to how to quickly prepare in the case of an emergency if missiles start falling on them.
The U.S. is also aware of Sheba's unique approach.
We're prepared for any eventuality, and I can say that the U.S. military has come here and visited this exact location to see how we would handle this, because we do have a very special relationship. Israel has a special relationship with CENTCOM and the Fifth Fleet. Unfortunately, this is a hospital that's prepared 365 days a year, 24/7.
Waltz tells CBN News Jews and Arabs here work together nonstop for the common cause of saving lives. He sees their resilience as a great example of Israel's ability to keep going in the face of all its threats. And Sheba's message to the world?
Our slogan is that we offer hope without boundaries, and that is what we live on here. That is the DNA of our hospital, is that we offer hope without boundaries, and we do that 365 days a year.
U.S. taxpayer dollars may be inadvertently supporting Hezbollah through aid to Lebanon. Our correspondent Chuck Holton reports from Israel's volatile northern border, where the consequences of this complex situation are playing out daily.
As Hezbollah continues its barrage of attacks on Israel, a troubling connection emerges between U.S. aid to Lebanon and the terrorist group's operations.
By supporting the Lebanese army, you are supporting, in the U.S., Hezbollah.
The United States provides approximately $300 million annually to the Lebanese army, ostensibly to help keep the peace. However, the lines between the official military and the terror group are increasingly blurred.
They are giving support to the Lebanese army, and indirectly they are supporting Hezbollah, because the Lebanese army, many of its soldiers are Hezbollah fighters. And in the south, especially here, these soldiers of Lebanese army are collaborating and coordinating with Hezbollah.
I'm standing in the town of Malkia, which is a kibbutz that's situated right on the Lebanese border. As a matter of fact, the border is just about a quarter mile behind me. And that village that you see on the hillside back there is called Bleda. It is inside Lebanon, and it's one of the places where Hezbollah is daily firing missiles and rockets and drones at Israel.
On one hand, we're holding a gun to protect ourselves. We have no interest of invading into Lebanon, to fight anyone, to kill anyone. We don't. We just do it for our own protection. I just remind you who started this war.
Since October, Hezbollah has launched over 7,000 rockets into Israel. Communities along the border bear the brunt of this ongoing conflict. Adding to the complexity is the presence of UNIFIL, the UN peacekeeping force. Deployed since 1973 to maintain peace, critics argue they've failed to prevent Hezbollah's growing threat.
Lebanese army is not functional. It's penetrated by Hezbollah. Its security and intelligence is penetrated by Hezbollah. And we in Israel cannot and shall not depend on any resolution that give a power to Lebanese army that is penetrated by Hezbollah and to UNIFIL that is allowing under 1701 Hezbollah to grow up to this level of monster.
UNIFIL's annual budget exceeds $800 million, with a significant portion coming from U.S. taxpayers. Despite this investment, Hezbollah's attacks continue. Our team traveled to northern Israel to gauge the readiness of the IDF forces arrayed along the border. While in the city of Kiryat Shmona, we experience the seriousness of the conflict. I mean, there's a fine line between brave and stupid. Here we go again. Here we go again. Get down, get down. Ouch. Ow. Let's see. Nope. Probably another drone.
You're fighting against ghosts, and especially underground ghosts. So it takes time, but we're winning. We're winning over them.
As Israel continues to defend against daily attacks, questions persist about the effectiveness of U.S. aid to Lebanon and UN peacekeeping efforts in the region. From the Lebanese border, I'm Chuck Holton for CBN News.
Chuck, this is appalling. How does it feel up there on the northern border right now? How are the people doing? Are they afraid? Is it frightening?
Well, there are a lot of people gone, obviously, and the ones who stayed have gotten used to doing what they have to do. I talked to that one farmer up there who said he's often out in the fields when the siren sounds, and I said, do you have any place to go? He said, I just get on the ground and pray. And so they are just having to make the best of it up there and hope that today's not their day.
Wow. Yeah. And how is this situation ever going to get fixed? What can be done? How can we get rid of Hezbollah, at least from that to the Litani River, let alone out of the country?
Yeah, I got to talk to some soldiers who are up there, and they all believe that they're going to have to go into Lebanon to physically rout out Hezbollah. But as you can imagine, that will be much harder than what they have had to do in Gaza, and it's taken them almost a year so far in Gaza, and they're quite not done there yet. So it's definitely going to be a long road ahead, and even if they, especially if they don't find a diplomatic solution, it's going to take a lot of effort, a lot of lives, and a lot of material and resources to rout them out of that area.
And can the Lebanese army ever become like disentangled from Hezbollah and the government? I mean, Hezbollah is part of the government. So how can this happen?
I don't think so. I mean, that would be really, really hard. As said in the piece, that many of the guys who are in the Lebanese army are moonlighting for Hezbollah or have family who are in Hezbollah, and so that'd be like trying to mix together butter and margarine and then try to get it back apart again.
Yeah. So how is it? How do people view Hezbollah in Lebanon? Do they like it, or it's just kind of a fact and that's why they have to deal with it, or they really believe in it?
Talking to some of those Maronite Christians up there, they say that their Maronite Christian brothers and sisters across the border in Lebanon absolutely despise Hezbollah. Pretty much everybody there would like to see Hezbollah gone, but they are the powerful force up there. They're even more powerful, as you saw, than the United Nations troops who are there, who are supposed to be keeping them out of that region. And in fact, those UN troops have to get permission from Hezbollah every time they do a patrol in order to go on certain roads, and they get told where they can and cannot go. And we even saw in the last few days where Hezbollah is using UN bases to put their rocket launchers all around to make it more difficult for Israel to strike those rocket launchers.
Yeah, I remember back I don't know how many years ago it was, when Hezbollah kidnapped Israeli soldiers. And I asked the spokesman for UNRWA, and they said, well, yeah, of course we saw it happening, but why should we tell Israel? They should just know. So it was like clear whose side UNRWA was on.
Right. Yeah, I think that is the big difficulty that the United Nations presents up there, is that they're so full of people who actually support the terrorists, and so getting rid of them would be the first step. But then what do you do as far as, I mean, the forces that are fulfilling UNRWA's mandate up there right now are currently, as far as I can tell, from the PLA, the Chinese army. That they're the ones with the blue helmets out there, that are helping Hezbollah. So it's no wonder that they support Hezbollah, and that is a real problem. Fortunately for us, we don't have American troops that are part of UNIFIL up there, and that's definitely a good thing, and it would make it much harder for our troops and for Hezbollah both. But at some point, they're going to have to go kinetic and physically rout out Hezbollah, because at this point they are fully prepared, and they're a threat to Israel.
Yeah, real quick, the U.S. is giving $200 million a year to the Lebanese government, to the Lebanese armed services, and then it goes to Hezbollah. So what can be done about that?
Well, I mean, that's something that really needs to be addressed. That $200 to $300 million a year that's being given to the Lebanese government is supposed to be so that they will keep the peace in the area. Well, they're obviously failing at that. And so we need to take a hard look at what we're giving to them and make their harder conditions contingent on them getting that money.
Yeah, Chuck, thank you so much for your insights. Thank you for joining us, especially here in Jerusalem, here in Israel.
My pleasure.
Thank you for watching Jerusalem Dateline. We're committed to providing you with unbiased reporting from the Holy Land. Through weekly broadcasts, podcasts, and online media, our vision is to reach millions around the globe with the true story of what's happening in Israel and the Middle East, all from a biblical and prophetic perspective. This is a big vision and is only made possible by the generous support of people like you.
Call us toll-free at 1-800-700-7000 or go to cbn.com/Jerusalem Dateline and make a donation that will help spread the light of truth about Israel throughout the world.
Israel continues to feel a collective heartbreak about the hostages, and you can sense it when you see their pictures in bus and rail stations, in public places across cities and towns. We were outside of Tel Aviv the other day and came across a display around a traffic circle. Hi, I'm Julie Stahl, and we're in Or Yehuda. It's near Tel Aviv, near Ramat Gan, and we just were driving and came to this display for the hostages, and it's called Kikar Tikva, which is the Hope Square. Now, some of these people were just returned this week. Their bodies, the army, in a complex operation, took 6 bodies out from tunnels in Khan Yunis. This is one, Yagev Bushtag. He was 35. Some people were known to be dead. Chaim Perry, they brought his body back also. And some they didn't know, but it's very sad. It's very, very sad. Alex Danzig, he came home. They found his body. And the empty chairs, I'm guessing, are for the hostages that have been freed or their bodies brought back. It's a really intense situation. What I can say is that Israel really takes it to heart, and they care about their people. We don't know the state of the rest of these hostages, but we really want to ask you to keep praying. Keep praying that God himself will bring them home. God himself will bring them home. Look at this, Ariel Bibas and his little brother. He and his brother are still captive. Ariel and Kfir Bibas. He's the youngest hostage with his mom, Shiri Bibas, Yarden Bibas. Sagi, he's still captive. I interviewed his father in the beginning. Hamza, we interviewed his cousin. Also, he's a Bedouin. Look at them all. Look at them. They all have names. They all have lives. You know, I don't know them, so I can't say, but God knows them. Wow. All these people. We need you to pray. There's 109 that are still held hostage. It's not known the fate of any of them. It's assumed that many of them are still alive. And we hope that they come home soon. Pray for them. Pray for them. That's all for this edition of Jerusalem Dateline. Thanks for joining us. Remember, you can follow us on social media and access CBN content through our CBN apps. And please continue to pray for the safety of IDF soldiers and all those caught in harm's way, and for the return of the hostages. And remember, the God who watches over Israel and you and me neither slumbers nor sleeps. I'm Julie Stahl. We'll see you next time on Jerusalem Dateline.